And this evolution of visual effects in Wanted, what Timur has done, is a way of looking at something uniquely.
Visual effects is a term we're using for CG effects, but for audience it's a story and exciting show. And visual effects helps us to achieve it.
I think the use of the visual effects is unusual in the sense is that it plays with reality in a way that I certainly haven't seen it before. In the film, there's probably about 800 effect shots.
We've taken it on to do all our preparation through a main central hub, which is all controlled by Timur and his company in Moscow.
This, I think, was mostly unusual, and then for the first time, I think, for a Hollywood film to actually have a lot of it done in Russia.
We're using all the resources. It's a great CG artist helps to do this.
Тимур, он прежде всего художник.
Timur's main gift is that he is an artist, first of all, and his artistic approach to sequences starts from the art design. So he sees those sequences as an artist, first of all.
English is not his language, but visual imagery is, and as we went through the process of working on the sequences, Timur would go away in his science lab and come back with these sequences about how he wanted to shoot something.
Timur pre-visualizes on the computer. It's how he uses math and science to create images that will feel like they are of our world, even though you've never seen them before.
Timur, and he explained to artist what he wants to do, and the artist will make the previous.
It's great in that you see what he's going for, because he'll previs something very specifically, but at the same time isn't so hung up in the camera has to be right here and they have to do exactly what I did in CG. He'll previs a whole scene to explore the scene and to communicate and start a dialogue with everybody.
Pre-visualization helps to start to communicate between different departments, between CG department and stand people, and before the shooting they're thinking simultaneously and moving forward together.
That's like the stuff when the train ends up crumpled in this ravine. That was in a pre-visualization 8 months ago.
The Pandolini sequence, that was definitely very difficult because of the complication of creating that terrain and the environment of the gorge and all of that entirely in CG.
There was some plate shot on location, but the shots were so specific to the camera work that we couldn't really use them. For example, this shot here, we have no more plate left. So every other background is done CG.
The big challenge there, of course, was to overcome the feeling of miniature and to get the proper feeling of scale. It was always very important for Timur to make it look real.
Timur really did know what he wanted. He loves the real lighting, he loves the real feel, he loves the real exposure to everything. Traditionally speaking, when you see a visual effects shot, you know it's a visual effects shot because of the way it's exposed. A lot of directors in some cases like the sky perfectly exposed next to the interiors, and that's really impossible. You know, nothing looks like that. The only way that you can see that sort of dynamic range is through your eye. When you capture something on a film camera, you see the sky blown out or the interior underexposed or something like that. The great thing with working with Timur is that he wanted that real look. Blow out the sky, you know, let it go into a silhouette and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a challenge because, you know, it goes against traditionally what we've been doing in the past. But one of the signature effects that he does go for is that he'll go for a slow-mo shot and then very speed it or speed it back up as well.
I never worked on a film where so much of the photography was altered in terms of what speed it was run at, so that was a big challenge.
When we were originally looking at this down in LA with him, we were going, oh, you know, I don't know if this is going to work. It's just, trust me, it will work. It's really funny because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, Timur, you're right, it really works. The sequence flows together and it tells a wonderful story, and it's a fun story, and it's a cool story.
You could conceivably say that you could train rats or work with real rats, and I think there were, in some of the shots there were actually some real rats there, but in general, for that whole idea of the rats having, you know, the bomb strapped to them, digital was obviously a good choice for that. The big one where the dump truck empties them out, the animation has to be cloned between the different rats, so they had to create motion cycles and all those things. And in some way, that's the easy part, doing a close-up rat, some of the close-up shots, whereas a lot more character animation, detailed animation every second. You look at every movement and this and that. It can almost be more challenging because your eye is really focused on those. Again, there are some really interesting speed-up and slow-down moments, and especially, the one that the rat is thrown towards camera and it's got the little timer on it and time runs down. And it kind of freezes that whole moment right before it explodes.
Timur gives us these moments where the details are really larger than life and beautiful. When Wes learns to curve bullets, very small things become very large, and we'll be with a bullet when it travels around the corner doing these impossible things.
And again, a lot of study of physics and aerodynamics and movement of bullets went into all of those elements to create visual effect that would feel completely possible and completely within the grasp of reality.
Those shots, we really went heavy on the defocusing elements because realistically, the bullet coming towards camera, of course the background would have to be extremely out of focus with that kind of close-up photography to kind of keep that reality.
I think one thing about this movie is it really runs to the concept of fantasy and tries to make it physically believable.
If you don't use CG correctly, they can become apparent rather than seamless. The trick is, the art is to know when to be out of it and when to be in it.
I think the main thing is that Timur doesn't get carried away with special effects and visual effects, but he uses them when they're needed in the film.
He tends to judge every effect by, is it telling an emotional story or not?
When you have emotional context, then visual effects works. And every time when you have something non-emotionally connected with the rest of the materials, then it's very dangerous because visual effects stops storytelling.
If it doesn't tell an emotional story with it, he won't do it.
I think that's the reason why the visual effects are certainly of great effect in the film. But at the end, the viewer is going to completely absorb this kind of moment in an emotional way.
It is a vision that has emerged from Timur's mind, but pulling from a great pool of resources of tremendously talented individuals that he has here. And I think what we're seeing is the amalgam of that great collaboration and creating visual effects that haven't been seen before.